If you turn with me briefly this morning, I hope you brought your steak knife and your fork and your plate and your bib, because I plan on giving some meat today, and I hope y'all got your good dentures in so you can chew it and you can die. I hope everybody brought their good teeth today so we can chew this meat. Y'all wanna eat before we eat in here? All right, let's see. Diggy Bell, if you'll put up for me, be coming from Haggai, the first chapter. Oh yeah, Haggai. Haggai, the first chapter, be reading verses 1 through 11. Deacon Bell, if you will, I'll be coming from the Amplified version. As I want to amplify, I want to make this bigger. I want to paint this picture clearer so that we can walk away with that obedience that has that name. So Haggai chapter 1, verses 1 through 11. And it reads, "In the second year of Darius, the king of Persia, on the first day of the 6th month," is yours say that? Yeah, the first day of the 6th month, the word of the Lord came to Haggai the prophet, to Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and to Joshua, son of Jehozadak, the high priest, saying, "Thus says" who? The Lord of hosts. So somebody say, this is Jesus talking. "These people say the time has not come that the Lord's house, a temple, should be rebuilt." Then the word of the Lord came by Haggai the prophet, saying, "Is it time for you yourselves to live in your expensive paneled houses, while this house of the Lord lies in ruins?" Verse 5, "Now therefore, thus says" who? Somebody say, this is the Lord talking again. "Consider your ways and thoughtfully reflect on your conduct." Who said that to you? The Lord said, consider your ways and thoughtfully reflect on your conduct. Verse 6, "You have planted much, but you harvest little. You eat, but you do not have enough. You drink, but you do not have enough to be intoxicated. You clothe yourselves, but no one is warm enough. And he who earns wages earns them just to put them in a bag with holes in it, because God has withheld his blessing." Now see, verse 7 is going to look similar to verse 5 because the Lord is repeating himself. Verse 7 says, "Thus says" who? The Lord of hosts. What do you say? Consider your ways and thoughtfully reflect on your conduct. That's 2 times in 3 verses that God has says, consider your ways and thoughtfully reflect on your conduct. "Go up to the hill country and bring lumber and rebuild my house, that I may be pleased with it and be glorified, says the Lord, accepting it as done for my glory. You look for much harvest, but it comes to little. And even when you bring that home, I blow it away. Why, says the Lord of hosts?" Guess what? When God asks you something, He always give you an answer. He said, "Because of my house, which lies in ruins, while each of you runs to his own house, eager to enjoy it. Therefore, because of" who? You, that is your sin and disobedience, "the heavens withhold the dew, and the earth withholds its produce." God said, "I called for a drought on the land and the hill country, on the grain, on the new wine, on the oil, on what the ground produces, on men, on cattle, and on all the labor of your hands." Whew. You may be seated if you can. I feel like I'm in trouble. I read it. I feel like I'm in trouble. So How many know that in Genesis, when God created the heavens and the earth, he only had to speak and say what he wanted to say one time? He only had to say, let there be, one time. When Jesus want to cast out a demon or a legion of demons, he only had to say, come out, one time. When Jesus spoke to the storm, he only had to say, peace be still, one time. When many people in the Bible who were dead and God wanted to resurrect that dead situation, he only had to say, wake, arise, one time. So what I want to point out here, anytime that same God has to say something twice, that means that we're not picking up what he's putting down. The same God that took one time to say all this told us twice in 3 verses, consider your ways and thoughtfully reflect on your conduct. See, what we have here, and I'll give you a little background, because what we have is Haggai's portion of this and the role that he plays in the Jews coming out of captivity and rebuilding the house of who? Of God, the house of the Lord. So one year, somebody say 1 year, they got a new king. His name was Cyrus the Great. And in Ezra, you put up Ezra 1. I'll read it verses 1 through 4. In Ezra, what we have is Cyrus the Great. The Jews had just finished 70 years of captivity. And in Cyrus' first year, he said, you know what? I'm going to release you all from captivity, but I'm going to mandate you to go build the house of the Lord. So your release is conditioned upon you building the house of the Lord. I'm only releasing you from this bondage to go build the house of the Lord. I'm going to say that till we get it. The condition of your release is to do the work of the Lord. I'm going to say that one more time. The condition of your release. I know you're bound right now, but this is a conditional release. And the condition for your release is to rebuild the house of the Lord, to do God's work. So the people get released and they go and they're excited and they're enthusiastic when they first start the work. Aren't we all? When this first step, we motivated, we disciplined. Matter of fact, it said they get there and they lay the foundation, and then it said they had a praise party, Bishop. It said they had a concert, and they hadn't built the temple, they had only built the foundation. And it was so good to them, and the presence of the Lord fell, and they had a praise party like we just got finished having. They said that victory has a name, our freedom has a name, and it's Jesus. So they built the foundation, somebody say, and then they let something stop them from completing the work. They let something stop. They paused what God said pursue. They violated the condition of their release. So they let people come and they stopped them. And when we walk up on this phase of Haggai, the portion that we read, it said that this period had been going on for 16 years. The work of God had been on pause for 16 years. For 16 years, the people sowed much and reaped little. For 16 years, the people ate much and couldn't get full. For 16 years, the people made a lot of money, but it blew away. For 16 years, they drank a lot and didn't have enough for their thirst to be quenched. How long is it going to take you? God had to say, this has been going on long enough. I need you to consider your ways. I need you to thoughtfully reflect on your conduct. See, you are not building my house. You are not doing my work, seeking me first. And for 16 years, you can't see in 16 years that you working hard and reaping little. You can't see that you keep getting promotions, but your bills are going up. You can't see that you've been going out to eat, but you still not full. You can't see that you putting in all this effort and it's reaping little. So God said, check this out, my people. Are we all his people? Yes, he said, check this out, my people. I'm going to need you to consider your ways. And I'm going to need you to thoughtfully reflect on your conduct. Ezra 1, it says, now in the first year, I'm going to prove it, I ain't making this up. In the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, almost 70 years after the first Jewish captives were taken to Babylon, that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might begin to be accomplished, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, so that he made a proclamation. Say, the king did this. He made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom. That means it's for everybody. Everybody under me, this is the proclamation. Next scripture, Deacon Bill, verse 2. Thus says Cyrus king, this the king talking, the Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has charged me to build him a house at Jerusalem in Judah. Next verse. Whoever is among you of all who people? His people. May his God be with him, and let him go. Let him go. I'm releasing them. Let them go up to Jerusalem in Judah and what? Rebuild the house of the Lord, the God of Israel in Jerusalem. He is God. Next verse. And in any place where a survivor of the Babylon captivity of the Jews sojourns, let the men of that place assist him with silver and gold, with goods and beasts or flocks, if you don't get that, besides free will offerings for the house of who? So he said that I want you to release, I give you permission to go, but the condition is for the work. I'm releasing them for the work. And it says that you're going to assist them with silver and gold, with goods and beasts, besides the free will offering. So that's good. That's all I needed. So what he's saying here is, I know you've been bound, because it said they coming off of 70 years in captivity. And he says, you know what? I'm going to release you. You on a work release program. People that get incarcerated get on work release program. That means I'm going to let you go from this situation. I'm going to let you go from this bondage. But I'm letting you go because the Lord's work needs to be tended to. How is it? And see, Cyrus wasn't even saved. How is it that the Lord, if the Lord doesn't have work for you to do, how is it that he let somebody in the world release you to go do what your God said do? And then the people that didn't believe like him, he said, when they go build, y'all assist them. So you get to this and you let things stop you, and for 16 years, it didn't click. How long will it take it to click in our lives? How many know that order is important? And priorities of work are important. Because if it wasn't, God, it would be no need for God to say, seek ye first. So order and priorities, what they do is work hand in hand to make life function. At least the life of a believer. How many believers in here? Amen. So our life functions off of God's order and our priorities. He said, I give the order, and I'm going to give you a choice to line these priorities up. Y'all will get that in a minute. I initiate the order, but you're going to have to line up the priorities. So God gave the order. We owe our priorities of work. Y'all will get that later. And then he gave you the answer, seek ye. See, how many know that when we talk about how important order is, that order, it just makes stuff flow smoothly. See, when anybody's eating, well, when I'm eating meat, you chew before you swallow. Does everybody do that? When you get something heavy, you chew before you swallow, right? Because it not only makes the next step possible, but it makes it easier on you. So if order wasn't important, oh, y'all not getting this. If order wasn't important, then why would it? How many know when you're going to change, if we wanted to change the color of these walls in here, you would prime before you paint? See, that order, what it does is it keeps from what used to be coming through on what is to be. Wow. My God. So if anybody, it's pointless to prime after you paint. So God has designed order, and it's up to us for the priorities of work. Because I can try to swallow before I chew, but it won't go down as easy. I can prime after I paint, but it serves no purpose. So God is trying to show us, even in the natural, that order is important, but the priorities, that's your choice. And see, in Ezra 1, he says, your condition is, your release is conditioned upon the work. But my question is, if the work of the Lord is the condition for your release, then what do you think happens when you stop? I hope y'all quiet because you're chewing. If the work of the Lord is the condition for your release, then what do you think happens when you start working? I can tell you, you will sow much and reap little. You will eat much and will not get full. You will drink and cannot get intoxicated. The money and the wages that you do make, you put it in bags with holes in it. You know why? Because the condition of your release was God's work. So when you void the conditions of your release, do you know how much you void if you void the conditions of your release? And see, this is what we do. We holier than thou. We strong Christians. We fussing and cussing at the devil and saying, oh, Lord, I'm telling you, enemy, no weapon that's formed against me shall prosper. And the devil saying, oh, that don't have nothing to do with me. What you going through is self-inflicted. Wow. So we fussing at the devil and he laughing like, oh, that's on you, boss. That you violated the conditions of your release. If anything, the enemy is saying, learn from me when I put myself first in heaven, that God threw me down just like that. He said, if anything, you could have learned from my story. This book, those books that's in front of y'all, those textbooks, those life books, that open book test, that should show you. Wow. I can learn from other people's mistakes. I can learn from the mistakes that other people's made. You look, he was already in heaven. We trying to make it there. He said, oh, that's not me. He said, if anything, you should have learned from me what happens when you put your agenda before God's. He said, your wounds are self-inflicted. So all that binding and loosing ain't doing nothing because these wounds are self-inflicted. I can't cut myself and say, Jasmine, I rebuke you from cutting me. And I'm cutting myself the whole time. And the devil is saying, your lack ain't because of me. Your attack ain't because of me. You responsible for this. You violated the conditions of your release. And they say for 16 years, God withheld his blessing. Bishop preached about, is your living in vain? For 16 years, their sowing was in vain. Because their priorities of work. They built the foundation. They did do that. They started off enthusiastic. They started off on fire for God. But then they did what we often do is they let people make them pause on what God said pursue. How many times do we have to say, people will be people? How long will it take us to reflect on our own conduct? How long will we live without the blessing? How long? For 16 years, they lived without the blessing. How long have some of us been living without the blessing? Because we know we've been sowing. We know we've been planting. we know we've been getting promoted. We know we've been eating. We know we've been drinking. How long will you live without the blessing? Because, see, me, I've sown too much for my harvest not to match. I don't know about y'all. I don't like the work, and what I'm producing is not matching up to the effort that I'm putting in. So I decided I'm going to get my priorities in line. I've eaten too much of this not to get full. I've drank too much wine not to be intoxicated yet. How long will it take you to consider your ways and reflect on your conduct? See, all God wanted was his house to be built. He said, you can build me something to live in. I can dwell there. See, a home is a habitation. A house is a habitation. That means somebody lived there. It's your body, not the temple of the Lord. So what is God's living conditions?
Wow. Yeah.
In your temple? He said, I want you to build this up so I can stay there. You don't have to worry about missing anything because you build this and I'm going to dwell there. So how can we stop the building of God's house and attend to guess what? Ladies, I don't care how much makeup you put on. You can dress up your house, but as long as that temple lie in ruins. Fellas, I don't care how many Stacy suits and shoes you wear and put on your own temple, but if the house of the Lord lie in ruins, you're going to sow much and reap little. Is this clear to y'all? I'm trying to get my Picasso on this. I just want you to see it. Like, if we can see this, see, a conversation you had, this is for people that still walk by sight. We ought to have enough faith to do the work of the Lord anyway. That's people that walk by faith. But this is to paint a picture for y'all that need to see it. If you still walk by sight, we're going to eliminate that excuse today. I want you to see what happens when you pause on what God says pursue. And it's sad. It definitely is sad that the Lord has to withhold from us when his desire was to give us everything. Parents, have you ever bought something for your kid? You say, man, the way you acting, I ain't getting this for you. Right. Matter of fact, give me this too. Right. He already purchased it for you. Yeah. And he said, I want to give it to you, but I need you to consider your ways and reflect on your conduct before my God. He said, I kept you for the work. I freed you for the work. I sent goodness and mercy to follow you for the work. I released you for the work. I forgave you for the work. I've shielded you for the work, but you stopped doing the work. He said, all this arsenal that I'm putting behind you is to aid you in the work. But when you stop the work, you violate the conditions of your release. My God. So Cyrus the Great said, I'm going to release you. I want you to go build the house of the Lord. I'm letting you go to go build the house of the Lord. And they immediately, they went. They freed. They high-fived each other. Say, we coming out. We came out. God brought us out again. Let's go build the house. The foundation is laid. And then they had a praise party. And right after this, let me show you how the enemy works. Anytime you get ready to do not your work, because he'll assist you in your work as long as you're neglecting what God told you to do. As soon as they started the work, it said that the enemy came in. Some people came in and said, hey, let us partner with you and help you build this temple, because we sometimes praise that God too. So you can't miss, oh my God. The enemy in Genesis was a snake. I mean, he was subtle. He was smooth with it. Right. And in the New Testament, we talk about he walked around as a roaring lion. So make sure you don't miss the snake looking for the lion, because these people gave the appearance gave a form of godliness, and appearance said, we want to work with you, but their motives were not the same. You can't let everybody partner with you on God's work. So anytime, see, when we get lazy with the word of God anyway, we'll take help from anybody. When we just want some of the weight off our shoulders, we'll take help with anybody. When we coming in proximity to these mountains, and we are, you're going to have to be careful who you partner with. Because the people intent was to sabotage the work. And you working alongside snakes. Trying to do God's work. You put a brick on, they take it off. You build, they tear down. So be careful in this season, because the snake is still there. The lion is here now, but the snake ain't never left. Wow. So be careful who you partner with. And see, these people of God, they had been so in tune with God that they said, you know what? This work had nothing to do with you. He said, this work is for us. We don't need your help. We going to build. So they were discerning enough to see the snake. And they said, so we're not going to do it. So the enemy had to go back to the drawing board. And see, I want to be one of those where he come and they say, oh, man, I failed. I need another plan, because what I threw at Pastor Cooley that time ain't even work. He done matured enough to where that didn't work. I know this used to work last season, but this season it didn't work, so give me something else. So they said, this have nothing to do with you. God released me for this work. Wow. So I'm going to do this work. Right. I don't need your help, because the conditions of my release was for the work. So they went back to the drawing board, and they came back out and said, now we just going to talk junk to you. Y'all out there building, it's hot, y'all slaves, y'all doing this for the Lord. We got this going on over here. We partying, you working. We doing this and you working. And how many know you can still let people stop you when they start antagonizing? So first he tried to infiltrate. That didn't work. So now he's just trying to talk you out of it. Wow. So that didn't work either. Bless your name, Jesus. This is about to be the third try. See, that's showing a little bit of maturity right there. This is the third attempt. So infiltrating didn't work. Antagonizing didn't work. So now another thing that we call the enemy is an accuser of the brethren. Because, look, you can't let people cause you, my God, you can't let people cause you to pause on what God said pursue. Because if you pause, I want you to write this down. Because if you pause on what you pursue, then you pause on what you can possess. If you pause on what you pursue, then you pause on what you can possess. My God, my God, my God. And see, they tried to first come partner with him. But guess what? And when we deceive, when we babes in Christ, we like, oh yeah, that's a chance for unity. That's a chance for us to unify. That's a chance. The wrong dance partner don't help you get the moves right. I'm trying to tell you. He said, you can't, guess what? You can't be unified if the yoke not equal. Whew. You can't be unified if the yoke is not easy. And I need to know, and see, this is what shepherds and sheep and pastors and congregation and members need to know, that you can discern the difference between a sheep and a wolf that speaks sheep. What I'm talking about, what I'm talking about, religious people know all the words to say to partner with you. They come to you where 2 or 3 are gathered together, and you falling for it because you don't know the difference between a sheep and a wolf that speaks sheep. That's how they blend in. That's how they infiltrate. And yeah, he's subtle. And see, you got to know the difference, that some wolves just speak fluent sheep. Guess what? I've been there. I've been a sheep-speaking wolf before. And guess what? The sheep fell for it. And the enemy still used this tactic. You know why? Because it worked when you're ignorant of the devices of the enemy, but we're going to point everyone out today. He tried to infiltrate, then he tried to antagonize, and now we on to he accusing the brothers. So Cyrus the Great released them for a condition to do the work. But somebody say, then the leadership changed. Did this not sound familiar to today? What's going on in the world? So the leadership changed, and the accusers got the ear of the new leader and said, the Jews are down there building a city. What was their mandate to build? The temple, right? He said, the Jews owe great King Xerxes, ruler of all. He said, the Jews are down there building a city, and they are fortifying the walls of this city. And if you let them get it up, they not going to render to Caesar what's due to Caesar. They not going, in other words, they not going to worship the world like the rest of us because they down there building a city. So I think you should stop the work. This is the enemy's third shot. Try to infiltrate, try to antagonize and frustrate. And now it's an accuser of the brethren. But guess what? The new king fell for it. But this is the catch. When you are in tune with God, when you are determined not to let anything stop you from doing God's work, in the words of Jonathan Slocum, when they came to you and said, the king said, pause, you should have looked around and said, ain't nobody going to say nothing? We just going to stop? Ain't nobody going to say nothing? The decree, this is what you got. Oh, my God. When you get complacency, when you get complacent and stop pursuing the things of God, when you lose focus, it's easy for your focus to get shifted and you easily get fooled. They stopped building the temple based off a decree that said don't build a city.
Wow.
Why do you think God didn't relent on them in that 16 years that they stopped working? They never said stop what God told them to do. When you're not determined to do the work of the Lord, if you let anything stop you, it will. So I'm sowing a lot and reaping a little, and I've paused the work of God when the decree was not to build a city. So that tells me, and God looked at it and said, you could still be building this temple. But when we don't have that tenacity that we start with, when we don't have that drive, when we don't have that determination, guys, look, they paused the work of the Lord on false pretenses. The accusers' actions really didn't work, but they still stopped. And what happens is when they stop, they paused on what God said, pursue. So for 16 years, they had stopped this work based off a false decree. They stopped the work. And then we walk up on Haggai, what we're talking about. The Lord said, enough is enough. Haggai, I need you to tell the people to consider their ways. I need you to tell the people to thoughtfully reflect on their conduct, to go back to what I said do, to seek me first because they're not doing it. I need you to tell the people to consider their ways because it hurts the Lord to see you suffering that long just because you're not doing what he told you to do. How long will it take you to consider your ways? And see, this is what I don't get right here. They deceived the king, right? You got to tell your neighbor, pay attention. They deceived the king. That's understandable. He wasn't saved. But see, the people became complacent and timid about the things of God, and their priorities shifted. In this complacency, what we say, the idle mind is a what? So while they were on pause is idle, right?
That's it.
Pause is idle. While they were on pause, their priorities shifted. And then they started taking the wood from the hill country that God said go take. And they started paneling their own houses. So in their complacency, in that pause, the enemy crept in once again and got them to start building their own. In the Amplified version, it say your expensive panel houses. That means you put a lot into it, and it costs you a lot. But in your pause, when you're not constantly seeking God first, when you're not constantly putting his work and his will ahead of your will, the enemy is enabling you and manipulating you into misplacing your efforts. So you got a nice house, right? You got a nice house, but you eat and you can't get full. You got nice clothes on, but the word said, no one is warm. So you mean to tell me that my nice house that I built, it can't keep me covered and unexposed to the elements? I thought a shelter keep what's outside. But in our misplaced efforts, it said, you eat, can't get full. It said, and when you do get a harvest, I blow it away. So that means it's almost there. The harvest did come up this time. He let it come up and then blew it away. People, how long will it take you to consider your ways and reflect on your conduct? So God said, you know what, Haggai? Just go down there and tell them. They don't see it. I'm going to have to give them the answer. He says, you go down there and you tell them, consider your ways. Reflect on your conduct. And guess what? When this conviction came, when God painted the picture for him, because God can paint a picture better than any Picasso you know, I'm trying to tell you. He painted the picture and said, look at your life. Look at what I had for you. Look at what I still have for you. Look at how much you're putting into this. Look at how little you're getting out of this. Consider your ways. Reflect on your conduct. And it said, it's all because you build your expensive panel houses while my house lay in ruin. So for 16 years, it was just a foundation by itself. God don't need you to build that. He is a foundation. Right. He is a cornerstone. Right. So you just did what God already done himself. Who God already was himself, but he told you to build it up. He said, in one of the verses, it said you live in sealed houses. That means you covered yours, but you ain't covered mine. See, oh my God, you'll end up in a dangerous place doing vain work. We wonder why people that pursue the things of God can do something every single night, every single day, and not be wore out when you see them. That's why, because our priorities are in line. I can get up early and I can go to bed late and I can still come in here and do what he called me to do because I know that the conditions of my release are to do the work. And you know what? If you just read your word, it tells you only what you do for Christ will last. So it don't matter if you make money for yourself because it blow it away. It's not going to last. The stuff you're building up for yourself, it's not going to last. So why would you put your efforts in something temporary anyway? Yeah. When God said, don't worry about the temporary, you build mine and I throw that in there too. It's a package deal. And so whenever your focus is not on the things of God, you can be easily swayed. Think about it. In Genesis, he was subtle. The serpent said, did God indeed say? So what he did, he got you to question. And then when the enemy went and became an accuser of the brethren, the decree, oh my God, the decree can't stop you. The king's decree can't stop you from doing the king's work. The king's decree was not enough to stop, but they paused. Because King Xerxes said, until I figure this out, put the work on hold. and they remained stagnant for 16 years. If the people would have been seeking God's first and committed, that's the thing right there, committed to the work, persistent with the work, then they couldn't be stopped, because the king's decree can't stop the king's assignment.
Right.
Whew. They got food into 16 years of drought. I want y'all to get that. They wasted 16 years of sowing, 16 years of eating, 16 years of trying to earn wages that kept getting blown away. How long will it take you? See, it's understandable that the king got food. It's understandable that the bystanders got food, but the people of God should be sharper than that. The king can be food. He don't have a covenant. The bystanders can be food. They don't have a covenant. But the people that God has placed his name on should be sharper than that. Tell your neighbor, don't get tricked out of your prosperity. You see, when you stand on the word, and the words of God, the world can't get you off balance. How could you not be discerning enough to read the decree and say, this said don't build a city? You said, hold up, I'm just building the temple of the Lord that God told me. So when you stand on the word and take heed to the word can't get you off balance. And so Haggai has to go to the people. And God said the same thing twice in 3 verses. Every day you worked hard and failed. Every day you planted and reaped little. All the money you made dwindled away. Ask yourself, what have you lost since pausing the work? Reflect on that. What have you missed since you paused the work? How much time have you wasted since you paused the work? So there is no way you can miss God if you're working on his dwelling place. I live in my house. God desires to live in his house. And you can't miss him if he at home. So why would you not build? Because all he wanted was the glory. When you get to Haggai 2, he trying to tell you that the glory shall be greater than it was. The glory of the latter house shall be greater, but it's going to be greater. And see, that's why God had to work so hard and withdraw what he did from us, because he's trying to tell you, I'm trying to give you your greater. But you pause what I said, pursue. I'm trying to show you it's going to be so much glory in this work when you get done, but you pause what I told you to pursue. He knew that it was going to be more glory than the first house, but he couldn't get the people to build. He's trying to tell you the glory is on the way if you can build a place for it to go. Yeah. All he wanted was for his house to reflect how good he was. My God. And we, the people of God, we so bound, beat up, working hard toward the wrong goal. I coach basketball, and in every single game, there's a player that goes on a fast break the wrong direction. He working hard, running hard, huffing and puffing, squaring up, squaring his shoulders, flicking his wrists for nothing. All his efforts are in vain because he's going the wrong way. See, God said the goal is seeking God first. The goal is to take care of God's house first. The goal is completing God's work first. The outcome is all things being added. The outcome is the devourer being rebuked for our sake. The outcome is the wealth of the wicked being laid up for us. The outcome is the Lord preparing a table for us in the presence of our enemies. So he said, I need you to consider your ways. And let me tell you something. They did. Yeah. Everybody clap. Say they did. They considered their ways. And I just want to finish painting this. I got a couple more strokes. I want to finish painting this. So they said, you know what? I made up in my mind that as for me and my house, that we're going to serve the Lord. We're going to do the work of the Lord. So they get back to building the temple, right? Remember the first time the work started, the enemy came. They started back building the temple. And guess who came along? The enemy. the same accusers came and said, "Ooh, y'all ain't supposed to be building no house. Y'all not supposed to be building this. You have a decree in place." But guess what? The king had changed again. Now we have King Darius. So we went from Cyrus to Xerxes to Darius. So the leadership has shifted. And they came and said, "Hey, you're not supposed to be building this house." But somebody say, "This time." This time they didn't let that stop them. This time somebody, some child of the God, some worker, some builder, some determined Christian said, "We got a decree from the king that said we can build the king's house." So the accusers left. They kept working. So the accusers go back to the next king. Somebody say, "This is a new one." And say, "Hey, King Darius, check this out. I don't know if you know, but there's like a decree in place for these people of God not to be building, these cities and things." King Darius said, "Was there not another decree? Was there not another decree put in place by Cyrus?" So the king ordered all the people. He said, "I want y'all to go find the other decree." What does the first order say? So they went and they searched. And after some time went by, they came back with the decree. Whew. Diggy Bill, can you go to Ezra 6:6? So this time, somebody say this time, they didn't let people stop them from the work this time. They reflected on their conduct, considered their ways this time. When the enemy came, they kept building this time. And so King Darius said, "I hear the decree you talking about, but wasn't there another one before that?" So he said, "Go dig it up." And when we get to Ezra 6:6, we're going to talk about how he found the decree and he started to read it, not to the people, but read it to the accusers. The same people that came and accused, he said, "I found that decree. And I want you to check this out, what it's saying. I want you to get in on this decree." So it says, "Now therefore," I don't know how to pronounce all these words, "Tattenai, governor of the province west of the river, Shatar Bozenai," that's going to be it today, "and your associates, the Afra, them, who are west of the river." What did he tell the accusers to do? He said, you need to stay out of their way. You need to keep far away from them. Next verse, Diggy Bell. So he told them to leave them alone, right? First thing he said, this decree said, "Accuser, back up." This decree said, "Accuser, hands off." And you got to remember, this decree been in place for how many years? They paused for 16, but they were working before that. So the first order that was given, he said, "Accuser, you leave him alone." Didn't the Bible say that he would rebuke the devourer for your sake? He said, "Check this out, accuser, leave him alone." He said, "Leave the work on this house of God alone. Let the governor and elder of the Jews build this house of God on its site." Next verse. He said, "Moreover," oh, that's a fancy word. He said, "Moreover, I make a decree as to what you shall do for these elders." So now, first he said, accusers, leave them alone. Accusers, hands off. Accusers, mouths off. And he said, "And I'm going to tell you what you shall do for them." He said, "What you shall do for the elders of the Jews, you shall do it for them for the rebuilding." The condition is still in there. So he said, this is what you're going to do for them for their rebuilding of this house of God. Ooh, did we just say wealth of the wicked? Right. The cost is to be paid in full to these men at once from the king's revenue. Wow. So he said, you leave them alone. You help them, and we going to pay for it. But they got to do the work. Right. He said, oh, my God. He said the cost is to be paid from the king's revenue, the tribute of the province west of the river, that they what? May not be hindered from the work. You're going to leave them alone because they're working. You're going to give them your stuff because they're working. We're going to finance their expansion because they're working. How's it working? And you're going to see to it that they may not be hindered. Next verse, Deacon Bell. We going all the way to 12. I just want you to read it. I don't have to do much. I don't preach. The word preach itself. 4 words. And all they need. Including young bulls, rams, and lambs for a burnt offering. Let me pause right here. Is this not all the stuff that they sowed and reaped little? Is this not everything that they lost in the pause? Is this not everything that they let the people stop them from doing the work? You gotta get this. What we're reading right now is the first decree. So this not new. He told them in the beginning, if you don't stop working, I'll make them leave you alone. If you don't stop working, I'll make them stop slandering your name. If you don't stop working, I'll finance what it is that you're trying to do and let nothing hinder. This is the first decree. We got to realize that God's decree outweighs anything that any king said. And we were forfeiting all this for 16 years. How long have we been forfeiting the people leaving us alone? The devourer being rebuked for our sake. The world financing with our expansion for the house of the Lord. You miss all this when you pause on what God says, pursue. So he said, bulls, rams, and lambs for the burnt offerings to the God of heaven. Wheat. So is this not everything? Is this leaving out anything that they did and anything that they sold? I remember wine in there. I remember ram and lambs in there. He said wheat, salt, wine, and oil, according to the word of the priest at Jerusalem. Guess what? Let it be given them each day without fail. That means the decree said this is a no-fail mission. Everything that I'm mandating them to do for the people, let it be done without fail. But guess what the condition is? Keep working. People of God, keep working. That they may offer. So they even going to provide you with what you're going to sacrifice. If I need to spend more time here, then what he's saying is the army is going to give me more time off. So I can sacrifice my time here at this house. Whew. Are y'all seeing this picture being painted here? He said, you're going to give them what I'm requiring from them. So it's still no lack because they gave it into you for you to get. Let me back up and just let y'all read it. It said that they may offer pleasing sacrifices to the God of heaven and pray for the life of the king and his son. Next verse, Deacon Bell. Oh, I hope y'all getting this. May the God who has caused his name to dwell there overthrow all kings and people who put forth their hands to what? To alter this. Whew. He said, my God, he said, may the God that dwells there overthrow. That means God going to get them. The battle is not yours when you're working for the Lord. He take care of that. The Bible says that people engaged in warfare don't have time to worry about trivial things, but they have to worry about pleasing the one who enlisted them. So God said, if we're going to overthrow all the kings and people who put forth their hands. So everybody who put a hand on stopping the work. Everybody who put their mouth on stopping the work. Everybody who tried to alter this and to destroy this house of God in Jerusalem. I, Darius, make a what? A decree. That means I'm at the top and ain't nothing else you can do. Nobody under me can do anything about it. Let it be, what it say? Let it be executed at what? Ooh, that means cool. Right now and exactly. Whoo. I just want y'all to see it. I don't have to say no. I just want you to see it. Every single thing that they lost or couldn't get enough of in the pause was part of the decree. How can you have, this decree came before the pause. How can we as people of God have a decree that lays out the terms of what God will do and what your enemies will do for you? Pause the work. Shame on us. Right. God said, oh, you like, oh, Lord, don't let them slander my name. He said, if you working, I'll make them, it said, leave you alone. Don't let them put their hands on me. It said anybody who tries to alter this. And if you read down, I think verse 13 or 14, when it finishes this decree, it said, and matter of fact, anybody who tries to hinder or alter this work. You remember we talked about this wood and the panel that they took for their houses. It said, we're going to take a timber from their own house and hang them on that wood. Anybody that violates this decree, and he said, I told you to do it speedily and exactly. Why do you think he said exactly? We talked about order. We talked about priorities. You build, I rebuke him. You build, they'll finance this vision. You yield me this time, and I make them give you this time back. And matter of fact, I put a decree in place that anybody who touched God's anointed, anybody who touched the work of God anointed, how can we as people of God have this decree and still stop? The people, this is the decree that Darius found. That means the decree was there first. God told us this first. He told you what you'll do. He said, seek me first. And how many things? What things? Which things? So he tell you this. How can you still not seek him first? What have you missed in the pause? What? God's desire is not, he told us what he had ready for us. He told him, I'm telling you, they're going to finance that work as long as it's for me. They're going to redeem the time that you lost as long as it's for me. I'm going to make them keep their hands off of you as long as it's for me. I'm going to make them keep their mouth off of you as long as it's for me. But you can't avoid the conditions of the release, because God works through whom he pleases. He worked through Cyrus. And see, that even when we read last time, I preached about in Judges, where it say God left these people around. So he ain't going to remove the enemy for you, because he got to know that you still going to do the work no matter what. Right. This was contingent upon you keeping working. I have all this for you. Your job is to keep working. I'll protect, I'll shield, I'll increase. All you got to do is keep working. All you got to do is seek me first. Yeah. And he said, and he told the enemy, while he's reading the decree, he said, accuser, not only are you going to leave him alone, but you're going to give him all your stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Everything that they're going to sacrifice for the Lord, you're going to give it to them first. Yeah. So it's still no lack. You never lose. Oh, my God. I just want y'all to get it. Everything that was withheld from them in the pause was provided and issued to them in the work. So what I want us to do today is consider our ways. What I want us to do today is reflect on our conduct. And most importantly, never forget the conditions of your release. Never forget the conditions of your salvation. Yeah. Never forget the conditions of your calling. Never forget, because it's in the decree. If you can go look at the decree, that'll keep you in pursuit of what he said pursue. As long as you're in pursuit, you can possess what you pursue. Wow. And God said, not only is he going to assist you, but the accuser going to assist you. The infiltrator is going to assist you. The antagonizer is going to assist you. But your job is to keep the work. Don't violate conditions